The rain in a small northeastern city felt relentless, a cold grey curtain that had been falling for days. It was the kind of weather that mirrored the mood at the Pine Creek Zoo, a place once brimming with life and local pride, now shrouded in a palpable sense of neglect. For Sarah, a dedicated zookeeper who had poured 10 years of her life into this place, the gloom was more than just the weather. It was a heavy weight on her soul. She trudged through the mud-slicked paths, the collar of her worn jacket pulled tight against the damp, her boots squelching with every step. Her shift was supposed to be a simple, routine check, but a deep-seated dread had been nagging at her for weeks, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. The gorillas' enclosure was a particularly painful sight. Their habitat, once a lush, carefully cultivated sanctuary, was now a mess of stagnant water and overgrown weeds. She watched as Coco, the aging silverback, sat hunched under a makeshift shelter, his powerful frame seeming smaller, more vulnerable. His companions, a small family of 3, kept their distance, their usual playful banter replaced by a quiet, listless apathy. Sarah's heart ached for them. She tried to speak to the zoo's management, to raise the alarm about the deteriorating conditions, but her pleas had been met with empty promises and patronizing smiles. "Budgets are tight, Sarah," they'd say, a phrase that had become a bitter mantra in the hallways. Her route took her past the reptile house, a building that was always a little too quiet, a little too dim. The air inside was thick and humid, smelling of damp earth and decay. She walked the length of the glass-fronted enclosures, checking on the lethargic crocodiles and the barely moving turtles. As she approached the far end, her eyes fell on the largest enclosure, home to a Burmese python named Naga. The glass was so filthy it was hard to see in, but a flash of dark scales caught her attention. It wasn't the usual coiled slumber she was used to. Something was wrong. She wiped a section of the glass clean with her sleeve and peered inside. The enclosure, a complex habitat of rocks and tree limbs, was almost unrecognizable. There were piles of what looked like old food, the water in the trough was a murky green, and a sickening smell wafted from the air vent. In the corner, almost completely hidden, lay Naga. The giant snake was motionless, its skin a dull, mottled pattern, a far cry from the vibrant, healthy scales it once had. But what truly horrified her was not the filth, but a deep, festering wound near its head, a sign of a neglect far more profound than just dirty surroundings. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a dirty cage, it was a death trap. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her radio, the fear of what was to come a cold knot in her stomach. The fate of Naga, and perhaps every other animal in this zoo, now rested on her. I hope you're enjoying the start of this story. If you're captivated by Sarah's dedication and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to the channel to follow this entire journey. This story is a work of fiction, but it explores themes of compassion and resilience that we can all connect with. Sarah's radio call was answered by a curt and annoyed voice. "What is it, Sarah? I'm busy." It was Mark, the assistant director, a man more concerned with budgets and quarterly reports than the welfare of the animals. She tried to explain the situation with Naga, her words tumbling out in a rush of concern. "Mark, the python's enclosure is a biohazard. Naga is sick, seriously sick. There's an infection." A sigh crackled over the radio. "Look, I'll send someone over to clean it tomorrow. We're short-staffed." His dismissive tone filled her with a simmering rage. "Tomorrow might be too late, Mark. He needs a vet now," she insisted, her voice tight with desperation, but he simply cut her off. "Get back to your duties, Sarah. I'll handle it." Furious and feeling utterly powerless, Sarah knew she couldn't wait for tomorrow. She walked back to her small, cluttered office, a space filled with faded photos of animals she had cared for over the years. Among them was a picture of a young Coco, looking vibrant and proud. Her gaze lingered on it, a new idea forming in her mind. She thought of a friend from her past, a dedicated wildlife rescue worker named Jake. He had left the zoo years ago after a similar fight with management over animal care. He ran a small, non-profit rescue center now, and she knew he'd understand. With a pounding heart, she pulled out her old, cracked cell phone. She found Jake's number and, after a moment's hesitation, sent him a series of frantic text messages. "Pine Creek is bad. Really bad. Animals are sick. Python enclosure is a disaster. I need your help." She hit send and held her breath. The silence was deafening, broken only by the steady drum of rain against her window. She felt a flicker of hope, a tiny ember in the storm, but it was quickly overshadowed by the fear of what would happen if he didn't respond. The weight of her secret mission, of defying management, was heavy. She was risking her job, her career, for a cause that felt increasingly like a losing battle. But looking at the pictures on her wall, at the faces of the animals who depended on her, she knew she had no other choice. The reply from Jake came an hour later, a simple yet powerful message: "I'm on my way. Don't do anything alone." The relief that washed over Sarah was immense. A spark of hope ignited within her, pushing back against the cold despair that had settled in her heart. She knew Jake would be her strongest ally. He was a man of action, with a deep, unwavering compassion for animals. She spent the rest of her shift performing her duties mechanically, her mind buzzing with the plan she and Jake would need to form. The management's indifference had created a dangerous situation, and they had to act quickly and carefully. The following morning, the rain had stopped, but a thick fog hung over the zoo, making the place feel even more isolated. Jake arrived just after opening, his old pickup truck a stark contrast to the zoo's official vehicles. He was taller than she remembered, his face weathered by years of outdoor work, but his eyes still held the same fierce determination. After a brief, quiet greeting, she led him to the reptile house. She wanted him to see the situation with his own eyes, to understand the gravity of her call. The moment he stepped inside, his expression hardened. He took a long, slow look at Naga's enclosure, his jaw tightening as he saw the filth and the python's sickly condition. He didn't need any more convincing. "This is criminal neglect, Sarah," he said, his voice low and serious. "The wound, it's infected. He needs professional care immediately." He pulled out his own phone and started taking pictures, documenting the unsanitary conditions. "We can't rely on management," he concluded. "We need to go bigger." Jake explained his plan. They would contact a friend of his, an investigative journalist known for her hard-hitting stories on animal abuse. This wasn't just about Naga anymore. It was about exposing the systemic problems at Pine Creek Zoo and saving all the animals, including Coco and his family. The thought of a full-blown investigation was terrifying, but it was also the only way she knew to make a real difference. If you're invested in Sarah and Jake's fight for justice and want to see how they take on the corrupt zoo management, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us tell more stories like this one. And remember, this is a fictional story. Jake's journalist friend Lena was a force of nature. She was a woman who didn't just report stories, she pursued them with a ferocity that could shake foundations. When Jake and Sarah presented their case, she listened with a focused intensity, her pen scribbling notes in a small pad. They showed her the photos of Naga's enclosure and shared stories of the gorilla's decline, the underfed lions, and the general air of despair that had settled over the zoo. Lena's face, usually calm and composed, showed a flicker of real anger. "This isn't just a story. This is a public trust violation," she declared. "These animals are suffering because of corporate greed and indifference." Lena promised to investigate the story thoroughly, but she warned them of the risks. They will try to discredit you, Sarah. They'll say you're a disgruntled employee. They might even fire you." Sarah nodded, the fear of losing her job a constant companion, but her resolve was firm. "I can't just stand by and watch them get sicker. I have to do this, no matter what." Lena respected her bravery. "All right, I'll start digging into their finances, their inspection reports. I'll need you to document everything you see, every dirty cage, every sick animal, every detail." She explained that they needed an undeniable case, something so overwhelming that the zoo's management couldn't deny it. The next few days were a blur of hushed phone calls and secret documentation. Sarah, now a secret operative in her own workplace, carried her phone with her everywhere, snapping photos of dirty water troughs, empty food bowls, and listless animals. She focused on the gorillas, documenting the changes in Coco's behavior. She noticed he was now frequently holding his stomach, a sign of digestive distress from the poor diet. The other gorillas, once inseparable from him, were retreating to the corners of their enclosure, a clear sign of social and emotional stress. The more she documented, the more determined she became. The evidence was piling up, a damning indictment of the zoo's neglect. She wasn't just a zookeeper anymore, she was a witness for the voiceless. Lena's article hit the local news website like a bombshell. It was a searing exposé, complete with Sarah's photos and Jake's expert analysis. The headline, "Pine Creek Zoo, a sanctuary of suffering," was impossible to ignore. The story detailed the squalid conditions, the sick animals, and the management's refusal to act. The article quickly went viral, spreading across social media and local news channels. The public outcry was immediate and furious. People who had grown up visiting the zoo expressed their shock and anger. Local animal welfare organizations joined the chorus of condemnation, demanding immediate action. Sarah was at home when the story broke. Her phone began ringing off the hook. It was Jake, Lena, and soon, news reporters trying to get a comment. She also received an email from the zoo's director, an icy message demanding her immediate presence at a meeting the next morning. She knew this was it, the moment of truth. She was terrified, but she also felt a sense of liberation. She had done the right thing. The secret she had been carrying was out, and now the whole world knew the truth. The next day, she walked into the zoo director's office, a small room with pristine furniture that felt 1,000,000 miles away from the muddy enclosures outside. The director, a portly man named Mr. Thompson, sat behind a large desk, his face a mask of fury. "Sarah, you've betrayed us," he began, his voice low and menacing. "You've ruined the reputation of this institution." She stood her ground, her voice steady. "I didn't ruin it, Mr. Thompson. Your neglect did. I did what was necessary to save these animals." He leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "Necessary? You've cost us our reputation and millions in donations. You're fired. Get out." As she walked out of his office, no longer an employee, she felt the weight of fear give way to the strength of her conviction. The battle was far from over. The public pressure became a tidal wave. Under immense scrutiny, the city's animal control and a team of professional veterinarians working with Lena and Jake obtained an emergency warrant to enter the zoo and assess the animals. The media descended on the zoo, a swarm of cameras and microphones documenting every moment. Sarah, now a key figure in the rescue, stood outside the zoo gates with Jake, watching the scene unfold. She wasn't allowed inside, but she felt a profound sense of purpose. This was the moment she had been fighting for. Inside, the team worked with quiet urgency. The vet team immediately went to the reptile house. Sarah had given them detailed information about Naga, and they were prepared. Naga was carefully sedated and, with the help of a few strong zookeepers who had been secretly supporting Sarah, was gently moved into a transport container. The giant python's wound was treated, and the veterinary team confirmed what Sarah had suspected. It was a serious, life-threatening infection. The python was then transported to Jake's rescue center, a clean and professional facility that was a stark contrast to the zoo. Meanwhile, the gorilla's situation was also a top priority. The veterinary team examined Coco, finding him to be severely malnourished and suffering from a stomach ulcer, likely from the poor diet. The decision was made to move Coco and his family to a reputable sanctuary. It was an emotional and difficult process. Coco was sedated and his family members were coaxed into transport crates. As they were loaded onto the transport vehicle, a faint cheer went up from the crowd of onlookers outside the zoo. They were finally free. Sarah, watching from a distance, felt a tear roll down her cheek. It was a victory, but a bittersweet one. Naga's recovery at Jake's rescue center was slow but steady. The dedicated vets worked tirelessly to treat the infection, and with proper nutrition and a clean, safe environment, the python began to show signs of improvement. Sarah, now volunteering at the center, spent her days helping with Naga's care. She learned a lot about snakes from Jake, and the bond she felt with the python, born of their shared ordeal, grew stronger every day. The once lethargic snake began to move with more purpose, its scales regaining their vibrant sheen. Meanwhile, Coco and his family were adjusting to their new sanctuary, a sprawling, forested habitat in a different state. The sanctuary's staff sent regular updates to Jake and Sarah, along with photos and videos. The footage showed Coco, once hunched and withdrawn, now moving with a newfound vitality. He was seen interacting with his family and even beginning to socialize with other gorillas. The images were a testament to the power of a proper environment and compassionate care. He was finally getting the life he deserved. One evening, while Sarah was helping Jake organize supplies, a new video from the sanctuary arrived. It was Coco. He was sitting in a sunny patch of grass, looking healthier and happier than ever. As the video continued, a surprising sight unfolded. A small, curious gorilla, one of Coco's family members, approached the camera. But then, Coco, the aging silverback, did something unexpected. He picked up a stick and began to gently scratch the back of his hand, a clear sign of a scratchy sensation on his skin, a gesture that was immediately familiar to anyone who had ever interacted with a snake. It was a simple yet profound gesture. It was as if Coco was remembering their silent ally. The video of Coco's strange behavior went viral. Comment sections were filled with theories, some speculating it was a new form of communication, others dismissing it as just a random gesture. But for Sarah and Jake, it was something more. They watched the video over and over, their eyes searching for a deeper meaning. The gesture, the scratching of the back of the hand, was something they both recognized as a subtle, almost subconscious reaction to a specific kind of sensation, the feeling of a snake's dry skin against their own. They knew it wasn't a coincidence. Jake remembered a story from his early days at Pine Creek Zoo. A zookeeper had accidentally dropped a shed snakeskin into the gorilla enclosure. Coco, then a young, curious silverback, had been fascinated by it. He'd spent hours studying the texture, a moment that had fascinated the keepers at the time. It was a small, almost forgotten detail, but now it felt like a crucial piece of a puzzle. Coco's gesture was a silent, powerful acknowledgement. It was a way of saying, "I remember." Sarah, watching the video again, felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It wasn't just about the physical neglect. It was about the deep, emotional and psychological toll the zoo's conditions had taken on the animals. Coco had been so listless, so withdrawn, that his unique connection to other animals had been forgotten, suppressed. But in his new, peaceful environment, his memories were returning. He was healing not just his body but his mind. The subtle gesture was proof that their shared struggle, their silent alliance in suffering, had created a bond that transcended species. It was a profound moment of connection, a silent thank you from one survivor to another. The discovery was more than just a sweet anecdote. It solidified their belief that the animals at Pine Creek Zoo hadn't just been physically harmed, they had been deeply scarred psychologically. The indifference and lack of stimulation had stripped them of their natural curiosity and social instincts. Sarah and Jake realized their rescue mission had to go beyond just moving the animals to new homes. They had to advocate for mental and emotional rehabilitation as well. This newfound understanding galvanized them, turning their professional work into a personal crusade. They started developing new enrichment programs at Jake's Rescue Center, focusing on sensory stimulation and cognitive engagement. They shared their findings with the sanctuary caring for Coco, and in a remarkable show of collaboration, the sanctuary began to implement similar programs for the gorillas, providing them with new toys, puzzles, and even scents to explore. The scratching gesture, a quiet memory of a snake's skin, had become a catalyst for a new era of animal welfare. The scandal at Pine Creek Zoo led to a full-scale investigation and a complete overhaul of the zoo's leadership. The director and his management team were fired. A new board committed to animal welfare was put in place. The zoo was temporarily closed for extensive renovations and a complete re-evaluation of its animal care practices. The story of Sarah, Jake, and the rescued animals became a national conversation, a powerful example of what can be accomplished when people refuse to be silent in the face of injustice. Sarah, now a celebrated figure in the animal welfare community, was offered her old job back, but she politely declined. She had found a new purpose. She was now a full-time employee at Jake's Rescue Center, where she could dedicate all her energy to the care and rehabilitation of animals who needed it most. Her work with Naga, the rescued python, was a source of great personal satisfaction. Naga was now fully recovered, a magnificent, healthy snake thriving in a clean, spacious enclosure. The bond between them was undeniable, a testament to the power of trust and care. One day, while she was cleaning Naga's habitat, her phone chimed with a new message from the sanctuary, a video of Coco looking peaceful and content, his family nearby. He was sitting under a tree, and in a simple, beautiful gesture, he gently used his hand to push aside a branch. It was a deliberate, calm action, a far cry from the anxious gestures he'd made before. The new zookeepers at the sanctuary had no idea of the deeper meaning, but Sarah and Jake did. It wasn't a scratch this time, it was a simple, confident movement. It was a sign of a new life, a life of freedom and peace, a life that was now possible because of their shared struggle. The transformation of the animals became a powerful symbol of their redemption. The Pine Creek Zoo's downfall had been a painful but necessary process. Now the new leadership sought to turn the page, and they looked to Sarah and Jake for guidance. The new director, a woman with a genuine passion for animal welfare, regularly consulted with them, seeking their advice on everything from enclosure design to staff training. Sarah and Jake's voices, once silenced, were now shaping the future of a once-neglected institution. Their story was a testament not only to their bravery, but to the fact that change is possible, even in the most broken of systems. They had not just rescued animals, they had become architects of a new, more compassionate standard for animal care. Months turned into a year, and the new Pine Creek Zoo reopened with a renewed mission and a new name, the Pine Creek Wildlife Sanctuary. The old enclosures were replaced with vast, naturalistic habitats. The focus was on education, conservation, and ethical animal care. The new leadership, inspired by Sarah's actions, made a point of transparency and community engagement. The story of the neglect and rescue was not hidden. It was used as a powerful reminder of the sanctuary's new commitment. Sarah and Jake were honored at the sanctuary's grand reopening. They were recognized as heroes, not just for their courage, but for their unwavering dedication to the animals. They stood on a stage in front of a cheering crowd, looking out at the revitalized park. It was a powerful moment, but for Sarah, the real victory wasn't the applause. It was a quiet afternoon a few weeks later. She received a special package from the sanctuary, a high-resolution camera feed from Coco's habitat. She and Jake watched the live stream from their office at the rescue center, a silent vigil of two people who had fought for the same cause. Coco was no longer the hunched, withdrawn silverback. He was a proud, active patriarch, leading his family with confidence through their new, forested home. As the sun set, Coco did something that brought a tear to Sarah's eye. He sat down near the edge of a stream and, with a gentle, deliberate motion, placed a smooth, flat stone in the water, watching the ripples spread. It was a simple act, a moment of profound peace. It was a sign that the pain was gone. The neglect, the fear, the suffering, it was all a part of a past he was finally ready to leave behind. He was not just surviving, he was living, and so was Sarah. Their journey had not just saved animals, it had given them a new purpose, a new family, and the profound satisfaction of knowing they had fought for the voiceless and won. Their story was a testament to the power of compassion and a reminder that even in the darkest of places, hope can be found and bonds can be forged in the most unexpected of ways.